Olá a todos. Vamos ser as vossas professoras de inglês nas próximas aulas. Eu sou a professora Anabela Brígida e venho de Rio Maior, e a minha colega é a professora Rita Zurrapa e vem aqui de Lisboa. Assim, esperemos que gostem das vossas próximas aulas de inglês e que aprendam muito ou se relembrem de coisas que já aprenderam e, entretanto, não usaram e esqueceram. Rita, hoje é contigo.
Hoje é comigo. So, we're going to start. This is our first lesson. And we're going to talk about something that you all do at home. So I'm just waiting for a wonderful picture that you're going to have here, which is about reading. So this is something that day now at home. So we are staying at home and we know that, but we also have this great opportunity to read for ourselves. So just going back. So this can be really, really good to read. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So are you ready to start? This is what we're going to learn today, about different types of books, and we're going to listen to a small dialogue, and you're going to see that it's very easy to understand. So, can you think about where do you read? I like to read in bed. That's my favorite time of the day. It's when I pick up a book and I read in bed. That's where I like to read. Maybe you like to read in your living room, or probably in your bedroom too, probably in the kitchen, I don't know, maybe in the garden, the balcony. Or what about when? When do you like to read? In the morning, in the afternoon, at night? As I told you, I prefer to read at night, in bed. When I go to bed, I really like to read. So think about this. Where do you like to read? When do you like to read? What do you like to read? Because reading is one of the best pleasures that we have in life. So probably now that you are at home, maybe you can think about reading more than you used to read, because it's a wonderful thing to do, to read. So let's know a little more about reading. So I like you to meet one writer, Daniel Pennac, and he's a famous writer. He's from France. He's French, and he has written about some rights of the readers. Let's look at the rights of the readers. So, for example, the first one, the right not to read. I can choose if I want to read or if I don't want to read. It's my choice. It's my choice only. And the next one, the right to skip pages. If I don't want to read a page, I just skip it and go to the next page or to the next chapter. Who knows? And I also have the right not to finish a book. If I don't like the book, I'm not finish it. I just put it aside and I won't read the book. And the book for real life. I can turn it into a character of a book. I can be anyone I want. It's my fantasy, it's what I want to do. I read and I do. I'll be this person. The right to read anywhere. Like I told you, I like to read in bed. So it's my choice. I can read in bed. I can go to the garden and read. I can go to the beach and read. Not right now, but we'll do it any time. The right to browse. Just to look at the pictures, for example, look at the big letters, whatever you want. It's my right to browse. The right to read aloud. I can pick up a book and read aloud if I want. Beware of your neighbors, so don't read too loud, okay? And the right to be quiet. Once I read a book, I don't want to tell anyone about this book. It's my right. So it's my right not to tell my opinion about any book. A made-up story, someone has written a story that came from their head and that it's fiction. And we got non-fiction books. And these books contain factual information. Maybe you prefer the fiction books. These are maybe your favorite books. So, have you thought about it? What kind of books do you like? Can you find them in this list? Can you look at the list and decide, okay, so I like, for example, comic books. I like comic books, for example. Or maybe a biography. I really enjoy reading a biography. To go here? I don't know. A reference book. So it's a book where you're going for information. So maybe it's not a fiction book. What about a picture book? I think it could be either, but maybe it has more to do with fiction. So are you writing your columns? Are you picking up your words and trying to put them into these columns? What about the romance? Okay, so maybe you got them all, maybe you didn't. So we're going to look at it again, and I'm going to read everything that it's in here, and I'm going to check your answers. See how many you got right. I'm sure there were many of them. But we're going to look at it again, okay? So let's see. So this is about types of books. And all this is about vocabulary around types of books. So let's start. A recording of a book being read aloud, usually by an actor. So from these three, which one do you think it is? So if you got it right, that's 1 point for you. So did you get it? Audiobook. So very good. A book that has a strong hardcover. So which one from these is the right answer? So hardcover, which one is the hardcover? Right, hardback. Did you get it right? So that's another point for you. A book for children with many pictures and little or no writing. So which one? A book for children with many pictures. Which one is the right one? Picture book. Did you get it right? That's another point for you. A book about events in the future and imaginary characters. Which is the right one? Future, imaginary characters. So that's science fiction book. Very good. 1 point more. A book that someone writes about what has happened in someone else's life. So it's about someone else's life. It's about my own life, someone else's life. And that's a biography. So the next one, a book using beautiful language arranged in short lines with a particular beat and often rhythm that rhyme, that usually expresses emotion. So it has to do with beat and rhyme. So it's a poetry book. A book that you read on a computer screen. So this is a little bit different from the usual books that we are used to. So computer screen or any screen, maybe a tablet. So it's an e-book. It's an e-book. A book with a cover made with thick paper. Thick paper, the cover. Let's see, which is the right one? Check your notes, check your notes. So it's a paperback. It's a paperback, it's thick. A magazine or a book that contains a set of stories told in pictures with a small amount of writing. So contains sets of stories with pictures, with very, very short writing. So comic book, I'm sure this is one of your favorites, comic book. A reference book with a list of words in alphabetic order and their meaning in the same language or equivalent words in another language. So this is easy and something that you usually use in an English class. Right. I'm sure you got it right too. A traditional children's story in which magical things happen. So magical, this is the word that you have to look for. Which one is it, the magical one? Graphic novel, fairy tale, or science fiction? So it's fairy tale, very good. Check your notes if you got it right. A long written story in which the characters and events are imaginary or partly imaginary. So this is about imagination. So which one is the correct one? So it's a novel, very good. A popular book that sells in very large numbers. That's we talked about this in the beginning when we were looking at the words of the types of books. And that's the bestseller. So congratulations to all that got all the words right. And these are the words that you had to write. So now we're going to listen to a very small dialogue. And again, you have to take notes. It's just 2 simple questions, very, very simple questions. You just have to take notes of what you listen. Okay? So you're going to listen to the dialogue and you're going to decide which is the correct answer to each question. Okay? So just write in your notebooks which is the correct answer. We're going to listen to this dialogue twice. So these are the questions. The worst book Tom has ever read was, you have to decide, Tom Sawyer, Sherlock Holmes, or Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And the next question is, Tom's favorite genre is science fiction, romance, or a detective story. So you're going to listen to the dialogue and decide which is the correct one. I'm sure this is very easy for you. We're going to listen to it twice, okay? Okay, the mouse is not working with me, but we'll manage. Okay, here it is.
Dialogue. So what was the worst book you ever read?
Well, I have read loads of bad books, but the one which takes the cake is Sherlock Holmes.
What? Sherlock Holmes? Most people love that book. What on earth made you hate it so much?
I think that it was a fact that I was forced to read it for school, and that I knew that I'd have to do a test on it. I just didn't feel like reading it.
But weren't you interested in solving the murder?
Well, no, not really. I'm not a great fan of detective stories, and I thought the whole murder was really predictable, actually. I'd even say that the whole book was a bit boring.
So if you don't like detective fiction, then what's your favorite genre?
I'm more of a science fiction fan myself. I like imaginative stories with a lot of technology and make-believe worlds. That's what gets me going.
It again, but I'm sure you got the right
Dialogue.
answers.
So what was the worst book you ever read?
Well, I have read loads of bad books, but the one which takes the cake is Sherlock Holmes.
What? Sherlock Holmes? Most people love that book. What on earth made you hate it so much?
I think that it was a fact that I was forced to read it for school, and that I knew that I'd have to do a test on it. I just didn't feel like reading it.
But weren't you interested in solving the murder?
Well, no, not really. I'm not a great fan of detective stories, and I thought the whole murder was really predictable, actually. I'd even say that the whole book was a bit boring.
So if you don't like detective fiction, then what's your favorite genre?
I'm more of a science fiction fan myself. I like imaginative stories with a lot of technology and make-believe worlds. That's what gets me going.
Okay. So now that you've read, can you check your answers? I'm sure you got the answers right because it's very simple. It's a very simple dialogue, isn't it? So Sherlock Holmes is his favorite book, and then he really, really enjoys science fiction. What about you? Do you agree with him? Do you like science fiction? We'll see. So, before we go on to the next activity that we have for you, that's something that you have to do at home by yourself, we would like to know if you were able to do this. I'm sure you were. So let's see. By now, do you think you can name different types of books? Try to remember all the types of books that we talked about. So, I'm able to name different types of books. Is it very well, or it was difficult? Do you know all the types of books now, by now? Was it easy to find all these types of books? Maybe you've talked about many of them and you hadn't realized that you knew so many, but you really don't know a lot of them. So if you know a lot of them and it was really easy, you can put very well. If it's not so easy, you can put well. Or if you had some difficulty, you can choose this one. I'm sure you were very well. What about understand information in a dialogue? So we heard a very small dialogue. And I think it was quite easy for you to understand all the words that were in this dialogue. So if it's really easy for you, you put very well. If it's not so easy, well. Okay? What about the answering to questions? This was very, very easy questions, wasn't it? Just have to decide which was the correct one. So if you got all them right, and even in the game that we played, if you got all them right, so you would choose very well. Okay. So the next thing we're going to propose to you is for you to talk about books and what your favorite type of book is. So, since we cannot listen to you and we'd like you to have one activity where you're going to speak, you're going to promise me that you're going to stand in front of a mirror and you're going to speak to yourself. You're going to speak to the mirror and pretend that your teacher is the mirror. So you're going to try to answer to all these questions. Which was the last book that you've read? I'm sure you read some books. Who is your favorite author? And why? Why do you like his or her books so much? What do you think? Can you answer to these questions? And what about, do you think it's important that teenagers read? Do you think this is really important? So, this is your challenge for you. After you finish today's classrooms, you're going to lessons, you're going to stand in front of a mirror and you're going to answer to all these questions. Last book you read, Who wrote this book? Is it the favorite author? Why do you like it so much? The author and the book. And what do you think is important for teenagers to read today? So, if you have the means, if you have, for example, a cell phone, a telephone, you can record it. If you have, you can do it. Instead of standing in front of a mirror, you're going to use your phone and you're going to record your language. Why is it good? Because you can go back to what you said and try to make it better. If you didn't like the first time you heard what you said about reading books, you can go back and do it again. And then if you have the choice, you can send it to your teacher, and then he will know that what you want to tell him about books and how much you like to read. So that's our challenge for you. You're going to use your imagination. You're going to try to find answers to all these questions. Favorite book, favorite author, why do you read, why is it important for teenagers to read? So that's all, and we'll see you. Okay, so we still have 1 minute to finish. And so remember, maybe you can also pick up your book and show to everyone which is your favorite book. So pretend that your mirror is your colleagues, is your teacher, and try to speak as much as you can, because it's very important for you to speak in English. Even if you make mistakes, even if you don't know what you're going to say, try to speak like you know. And this is the way for you to learn English. Make as many mistakes as you can, as you want, because it's through mistakes that we all learn. And that's the best message that I have for you today. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.